Welcome, 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 welcome to the Miss Camay Show. My name is Miss Camay, and I am your host today. And I have the pleasure of interviewing, I think, one of the most educated, informative guests on the topic of workplace bullying that I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing. Today, I am joined by David Daniels. He is an occupational health and safety professional. He's a thought leader and president and CEO of ID2 Solutions LLC. He hosts the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. So fellow podcaster joining us. So he knows all about what we're doing.
Okay.
And he's also the author of a new book titled Psychosocial: Hazards Are Real. Welcome to the Miss Camay Show, Mr. Daniels. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Camay. Thank you for the invitation. Excited to dive into the conversation.
Yes. I just want to give people a little bit of background on you so they know who we're talking to today. You hold a PhD in occupational health and safety and a master's degree in human resource management. You are certified as a safety director, and you hold a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. That is really a hot topic right now in current climate. Yes. You're also the founding chair of the Safety and Security Industry Work Group of the National Association of Black Compliance and Risk Management Professionals. So let's go back to that diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. Let's talk about a little bit about that. Tell us why that and what that certification is for you.
Well, why that? Cornell has one of the, I'm told, one of the better programs around that topic. And I had the opportunity to participate, and I did. I mean, interestingly, as I was going through the course and certification process, there are many things that I heard. I go like, yeah, I know that already. I've lived that. That sounds normal. And then there were some, certainly some areas where I went like, whoa, okay. And so again, it was just really taking advantage of an opportunity that was presented to me. And but it's still been my life experience. When I present in this country, there's a story that people tell about what they see, and that story is real for them, but it's not always real for me. So I think, as a matter of fact, I'm always interested in having conversations about this topic that has now become kind of radioactive for some people. It's not radioactive for me at all. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced that if people were to read my book and put those principles in place, you wouldn't need an EEO program, a DEI program, an ABC. You wouldn't need any of that, because ultimately all of that is about creating an environment that is healthy and safe for the people that you invited. Now, the people you don't want there, of course, it's not going to be healthy for them, but you invited them. I mean, and if you don't want them, just tell them you don't want them. I believe that people should be intellectually honest about how they feel about topics like this. And if you want to have an organization that's homogeneous, that's all whatever, just say that. I can go other places. I mean, I've had enough birthdays now that I'm not fighting to be a part of anything that doesn't want me. If you don't, that doesn't make you bad or me bad either. Just say match. That's great. But don't lie to me. Don't tell me that I'm welcome here, that it's going to be safe for me here. You care about me. And then I feel something. Just don't lie. Tell the truth. This is not the place for you. You don't want you here. And I'll go start my own thing or find my tribe.
Yeah. I read an article this morning as I was preparing for my interview with you. And this is published in the National Law Review. Former EEOC officials defend DEI programs in response to the acting chair's technical assistance. It indicates that former U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission officials issued a statement defending specific employer diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs in response to technical assistance issued by the acting director of the EEOC last month. And I just want to highlight here, and then I want to get your thoughts on this because you are certified on the topic. The former EEOC officials who held the roles of chair, vice chair, acting chair, commissioner, general counsel, and legal counsel included our very own Sue Lang's daughter, Jenny Lang. She was the commissioner from 2013 to 2018. And vice chair in 2014 and chair 2014 through 2017 was part of the group of officials that signed this statement. And so, the article is pretty lengthy, but talk to us about why DEI programs are essential in the workforce today. Talk to us about that.
Let me be a little, this might come across as a little weird. I'm not sure if they always are. They're essential when you say that's what you want to be. That's when they're essential. We do have, I think we still have a free country. I wonder some days what that really looks like, but you have a right in a country like we say we are to not want particular people to do things. And if it's private and you are going to self-fund it and not expect anybody to help you, you can do that. You can have a group that gets together and says, we're only about, and then fill in the blank. You can do that. Matter of fact, some of that's legal. Where it becomes illegal, where it's an issue, is when you want my money, my participation, and my support for it. So if you want to do your own thing, your own way, I don't think you need DE anything. Do your own thing, find buddies just like you, but then don't complain when I won't buy from you, when I won't work with you, when I won't have a contract. And I think what happens is people, I want it my way, but I want you to like it. I want your money. I want you to be my customer, and I want to treat you a particular way. Well, just again, for every action, there's going to be a reaction.
Yeah.
And if you open the doors of your business or your organization, you say, I'm welcome, well, then I should feel welcome. If you don't want me to feel welcome, do the stuff that you're doing. I mean, these are all about choices. I'm not here to vilify anybody for making their choices. I am here to remind people, though, that for every choice, there's a consequence that goes along with it. And for those of us who are really interested in being open, and I'm not open to everything. I'm seriously, I'm not. I have, my company is me. I have the best boss I've ever had, me. Here's what I realized. There are about 5 million businesses get created every year in the United States. And about a third of them become employers. Many of them are great businesses, but horrible employers because they don't know how. They know how to be a business. They don't know how to be an employer. They don't know how to create an environment for the people that they want to employ. They think it's, hey, I'm the boss and I can just tell you what to do. I can treat you however you want and I can get rid of you whenever I want. Well, yeah, but now I can find that out. And if I know you treat people that way, maybe I don't want to do business with you. Maybe I don't want to. So again, these are all about choices. And again, as I said, those of us who really are interested in having things that are open, we have to be clear about what is valuable to us. You know, I can't do all things to all people, but here's the things I am. But if I said I'm going to be 1, 2, 3, then people ought to expect 1, 2, 3. And if one of those things is I am an equal opportunity employer, then you ought to be one. If you say your organization is open to everyone, where are they? If you say you want to be able to retain top talent, why can't you? I believe that you cannot is because you haven't created the environment for that.
Yeah.
That's why it's not working.
Yeah. A lot of it is the environment. Yeah. Great business ideas. You could have top talent in any industry, but if your environment is toxic, if it's hostile, if there's no sense of team, if there's no sense of belonging, if there's, if people aren't being heard, if people aren't able to share their ideas.
And again, belonging for the people that you say that you want, because look, the environments that I'm in are not going to be comfortable for people who don't care about physical safety. They're not going to be. I'm telling you, if you ride in my vehicle, you will wear a seatbelt or you'll walk. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not angry about that. That's just the standard that I have. You know,
Yeah.
I was in the fire rescue service for,
Hmm.
3 decades. And
Okay.
on my fire truck, you're going to wear your seatbelt. When we go into a building on fire, we're going to wear a respiratory protection. Or guess what? So it's not going to be, I'm not suggesting that psychological safety is this mamby-pamby, everybody gets what they want type of thing.
Hmm.
I'm saying
Hmm.
that it should be safe for the people that you've invited, the people who we say we're doing the same thing, we have the same goals, because we're going to be in conflict with people. If you're going to discriminate, if you don't enjoy working with women, you won't enjoy working with me either,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to sit there and let you talk down to women and treat disabled people. I'm not going to let you do that. I don't have to be angry, but it's not going to be comfortable for you. So see what I mean? It is about creating an environment that is safe and healthy for what you say you want. And again, if you want to do MMA, step in the octagon and you'll get your face beat off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know if I step in the ring, the guys or gal, whoever it is there to punch me in the face.
Right.
What I
Right.
don't expect is when I come into a small business, a nonprofit, a construction company, or whatever, and I'm being assaulted by people verbally. I didn't sign up for that. You see what I mean?
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
creating the environment to grow the thing that you say you want. And if you want something different, just be honest, and then people can decide whether or not they're going to participate in that or not.
Yeah. Great point. Something, a standard that we can, attempt to hold employers to, right? The
Yes,
employers that we work for.
yes,
Exactly.
yes,
I often tell, my clients in my consulting work, when we talk about workplace policies, guidelines, handbooks, et cetera, et cetera. Um, what does your employee handbook say about this? What does, your employer who's allowing this bullying to go on in the workplace, what does their handbook say about it, if anything?
right,
If
right,
anything.
right.
And present their policy to them, because that is something that you are entitled to expect from them, because it's in their policy, it's in their handbook. This is what they're telling you is expected of you, and this is what you should be holding them accountable to expect from them. It
Yeah.
goes both ways, right? It goes both ways.
Mhm.
So for those of you that don't know, Mr. Daniels and I were connected through the National Workplace Bullying Coalition. Mr. Daniels sat on our board for some time, and we never actually interacted outside of being copied on emails and the work that the coalition was doing. Until recently, back in October, during Workplace Awareness Month, Workplace Bullying Awareness Month, I presented a webinar with NWBC, and I talked about bullying in the workplace and how you can potentially build an administrative complaint against a bullying employer.
Mhm.
And you so graciously attended that webinar. Again, thank you so much for that. And at the end of my presentation, you mentioned OSHA to me.
Mhm.
You made a little comment, I think, in the chat
Mhm.
about OSHA and the protections that organization has in regards to workplace bullying. And so it immediately intrigued my interest. I think I immediately reached out to you and wanted to continue that conversation. And that's when I really became to know you and know you more personally,
Mhm.
and what you and your business stand for.
Mhm.
And so I've done a little bit of research, as you know, on the OSHA Act of 1970.
Mhm.
And so if bullying contributes to an unsafe workplace, and this is what I pulled off of the OSHA website, right? This is what OSHA says. If bullying contributes to an unsafe workplace, can it also violate OSHA? And the answer is quite possibly yes.
Mhm.
The OSHA's General Duty Clause,
Section
Section 5.
501. Yes.
Yes, you know it.
Yeah, yeah.
Section 5.
Mhm.
Each employer shall furnish to each of his employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his employees. it goes on further to say, shall comply with occupational safety and health standards promulgated under the Act, and each employee shall comply with occupational safety and health standards and all rules and regulations and orders issued pursuant to this Act, which are applicable to his own actions and conduct.
Mm-hmm.
So digest that for us.
So I'm going to take I'm not an attorney, but I think I talk like one son. It's a little bit of both. So on the one hand, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, our country was a country for 194 years, and we woke up and says, well, maybe we should have a federal law that says workers should not get treated injured and killed at work. At the time that the act was passed, 14,000 people a year were getting killed at work. And, Congress decided, well, it seems like that's a lot. So this federal law was passed. The law was passed under Congress's ability to regulate interstate commerce. That's how they did it. Because the OSHA Act doesn't apply. It does not apply to state and local government workers unless you write a state law that includes them in. So a lot of state and local workers aren't even included in the OSHA Act. But what the Act says, it has individual standards that talk about particular things like respiratory protection and, some other stuff and PPE. But it also says, well, if there isn't a specific standard, then this general duty clause kind of kicks in, which is what you just read. So, and again, in the rest of the world, well, in a lot of places, I won't say all of it, but in at least 40 countries around the world, they see that responsibility for protecting you from physical hazards and psychological or psychosocial hazards as the same thing. Now, in the US, the general duty clause is kind of wide open. There you can make a case. The case will be harder in some places than it will in others.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I just talked to someone on my podcast who is an expert in workers' compensation. You can make a workers' compensation case in some states for a psychological injury, and bullying can result in a psychological injury. It can result in moral injury. It can result in, occupational stress injury. So there is a nexus that can be made. That's the good part. But on the other hand, the OSHA Act, when it was passed by the 91st Congress, of the 535 people who voted for it, only 2% of the people who voted for it were women. So there's some stuff that they didn't think about because there was a bunch of dudes who approved it and a bunch of dudes who probably even wrote it. And at that time, they weren't thinking about the fact that, oh, yeah, about half of the workplace someday may actually be women. So the OSHA Act has some gaps when it relates to things that apply to women. Now, what I will say is, the injury rates really aren't all that different when it comes down to physical injuries. Women and men get hurt. If you get exposed to the hazard, you're a woman or a man, you're going to get injured probably about the same rate. Where it's different is with the psychological injuries. Women are injured emotionally more often than men are in the workplace. Why? Because a lot of them is set up. Dudes set it up. We got to be big and tough. They're getting hurt as well. They just don't say anything about it. And they go out and commit suicide at rates much higher than women do. So we've got issues around how our laws approach this and just how the environment is in and of itself. Sometimes the law will help you. Sometimes it will not. But I go to, do you really want to work for an employer or work in an environment where the federal government has to make them do it? Or do you want to go to the place who recognizes how important that human is and will treat him with care and dignity and respect because they value you?
Yes.
So they're both options, but I'd rather go for the one that doesn't have to be forced to do it.
Yeah. Great point. Great point you make. You also made a point regarding OSHA that, unlike the EEOC, right? When we kind of compare the two agencies, the EEOC really focuses on protected classes of, individuals, whereas OSHA, it's people, it's men, women.
Right.
So elaborate on that a little bit. Talk to our audience about that.
So safety is about creating an environment where people feel safe. That's it. It's not about so men will feel safe, so women will feel safe, so black
Mhm.
people, gay people, straight people, disabled people will feel. It is safe is safe is safe. Now, the difference is my perception of what's safe for me might be different, but if the environment is established to create a safe environment, then it doesn't really matter who's in it. It's got to be safe for whoever you invite to the party. You know,
Yeah.
um, and now what becomes complicated sometimes is how people feel about the safety things that we've done.
Mhm.
Because, and again, I use that example about just recently, as a matter of fact, in January, I think about mid-January, a OSHA rule went into place that says if you have personal protective equipment, it has to fit in construction because for years and years and years and years and years,
Uh-huh.
we've had a system that was built. Again, men built it. They created helmets and shoes and gloves and vests and whatnot for men, and then they colored them pink and made them smaller and says, well, they ought to fit for women, and they just don't. That
Yeah.
is because they weren't designed for women. So this is some of the
Mhm.
issues that we're having. It's what are our systems designed to do? And they may keep one group safe and not keep another group safe. And it's not that the intent was bad. It's that it wasn't inclusive enough on the front end to
Got it.
identify the hazard. You didn't know that because you're a dude, or I didn't
Yeah.
know that because I'm straight and you're gay or whatever it is. I
Right.
just didn't know. And I think we should honestly, if we have the option, I think we should give people more grace sometimes. We assume they're just mean people, and I'm not sure there are as many bad people out there as people say.
Yeah.
I think people are doing what is right for them, and it's not right for me. And because it's
Mhm.
not right for me, it doesn't make it bad. Now, some of it is, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not good for me. Why? Because you never asked me.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on in my head. You can't, you're not a mind reader. You're not a soothsayer, so you don't know what's going on. And if I don't tell you, you're never going to know. But
Right.
if you've created an environment where there's so much fear, I'm not going to tell you
That's
because
right.
when people tell you, you yell at them. When people tell you, you fire them. When people tell you, you reject. So that's why they're not going to tell you, and that's hurting both of you.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that a prior board member at NWBC in her consulting work, Catherine Mattice, she goes into organizations and assesses, workplace bullying problems, right? And one of the things that I learned early on from her in my work on this topic, after being bullied in the workplace myself, was she goes into these environments and she goes to the bully and she asks the bully, she kind of gives them this assessment, kind of a self-awareness assessment, like, do you yell at people if they don't agree with you? Do you do this? And you kind of have to rate yourself essentially. And early on in her consulting career, she learned that oftentimes, not every time, not all the time, but oftentimes, workplace bullies really aren't even aware that they're bullying,
They're not. They're not.
because number one, no one is giving them the feedback.
Right.
No one's sitting down and having a conversation with them. The employer is not presenting this assessment, to say, hey, is your behavior potentially, experienced as being, bullying behavior, to cause people to ask themselves the question or to have self-reflection about, how they're behaving in the workplace.
Right.
And so, very, very valid point. And again, that environment has to be created, right? Like you said,
Yes. Yes.
you've got to create that environment where people can actually have that conversation.
I want to connect it back to a question that I think you were asking earlier. And if you weren't asking the question, I think it was playing in my head. There's a reason why a lot of these DEI efforts didn't work, is because people made villains out of the folks who were different from them.
Yeah.
And often, and I'll say that often, it was the cisgender white male who was the villain. Well, often the villain is not any of the human beings. It is the system itself that was created. Now, a lot of those were created by cisgender white men. I mean, that's the facts.
Yeah.
But the issue was we created it for and by cisgender white men, and then we invite other people. That
Mhm.
and that was, well, yeah, let's invite her, but you can't just simply invite me into something that wasn't created for me, because
Yeah.
it's never going to work for me. And I use the again a lot of my examples about being in the workforce go back to my fire rescue career, because that's when I was a worker. All the other places I was kind of more in leadership role, and
Uh-huh.
I was with the city of Seattle for 20 years,
Hey,
and
shout out
the
to Seattle.
and
Hey.
the year that I started, the senior female firefighter had been on a job for 4 years. She came in 4 years before I did.
Mhm.
So yeah, they wanted to bring in women who wanted to be firefighters, but they kind of forgot that this place was not built for women. And the big issue was it took 3 more years before they decided that. Matter of fact, yeah, it took 3 more years before they decided, well, maybe we should have bathrooms that are different for men and women, because these are set up for dudes. These not are set up for women to be here. People didn't think about that. Why? Because there weren't any women in the room to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And again, so again, I'm not, people say I'm not excusing anybody. That's not the
Right.
point. I'm not trying to find blame. I'm trying to simply help people realize that anytime, every system is perfectly designed to produce whatever it currently produces. If you
Yes.
wanted to produce something different, the system needs to be changed. Changing the people isn't going to do anything,
Right.
because there are companies that are set up to be exploitive. They were set up that way. They were set up to
Mhm.
exploit as much money. They didn't care about people when they started. So you aren't going to
Mhm.
come 100 years later and go like, well, now we're going to start caring for people, because that system recruited a CEO that was vindictive and evil in their intent. It found people to be on their board that were going to support it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be
Yeah.
there. It's changing that system to produce the things you say you want to produce. And again, if you want to stay that way, stay that way. But then don't complain
Yeah.
about us not, other people. Can't grow our business. We can't. That's why you've
Yes.
limited your ability to grow by the way you're designed.
Yes. Yeah. Great point. Great point. I want to talk a little bit about OSHA's Field Safety and Health Management System Manual,
Okay. Yeah.
specifically Chapter 10 that talks about violence in the workplace. So, the purpose of this chapter in the manual is to provide a workplace that is free from violence, harassment, intimidation, and other disruptive behavior. I mean, this is like it's workplace bullying all over it.
Let me share with you that I believe that these psychosocial hazards, that's what they are. We're going to talk about that in a minute. They exist on a spectrum. And again, if you have an organization or a culture that is okay with not being kind to each other in civility, you'll
Mhm.
probably be okay if we haze each other, because it's just not. And then you'll probably be okay if we do a little bit of bullying every now and then. Hazing and bullying are really the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just one is, more, one happens for a period of time and bullying occurs for a longer period. You'll
Yeah.
also probably be okay with mobbing. And if you're okay with incivility, hazing, bullying, and mobbing, you're probably okay with harassment, because that's just doing that stuff to someone who's in a particular protected class. If you're good with that, you'll probably be okay with violence as well. They're all connected.
Yeah.
And we wait until there's some sort of physical altercation, till there's some sort of visible this stuff's been going on for weeks or months or even years. And
Yeah.
when the person said it was uncomfortable, we did nothing about it, which said we're okay with it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Let's talk about psychosocial hazards being real. That's the title of your new book that you have coming out. I just want to touch a little bit on your speaking calendar. We'll get more into the details of
Okay.
that. But
Okay.
May 28th in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada, up in Canada, you are doing your book launch
That,
for Psychosocial Hazards Are Real at a
yeah,
different book list up there in Canada. And
right.
so let's talk about that, that topic. Define that for us. Talk about and why that title and topic for your book, essentially.
So when I did my dissertation, so the title of my dissertation is The Lived Experience of Black Workers' Exposure to Psychosocial Safety Hazards in the American Workplace. It was at the time the only body of research that has ever been done on the health and safety of Black workers by a safety professional that I could find.
Wow. Wow.
As a matter of fact, there are lots of research out there about the environment in the workplace, but they're done by psychologists and social workers and people with really good intent. But I couldn't find a safety approach that looked at the safety of particularly of Black workers. And I could say that same thing about a lot of other groups that tend to be kind of marginalized. Again, we have a system, an entire country that was built on the backs of exploitation of African people. It just was.
Yes.
It is what it is. Have we gotten better? Sure, we have. But there are billions and billions of dollars that were made by Black people that we've never even benefited from. So that's how the system was built. So to act like that didn't happen is kind of naive. So when I was doing my research, I wanted to understand not only the physical issues that Black workers experience, but the psychosocial ones as well. And that caused me to realize it's not just Black workers. That's just a group I understand a little bit better because of my own lived experience.
Right.
And I looked around the globe and found that there are multiple countries around the world who talk about psychological health and safety. And they talk about it from the perspective, it is a safety issue. It's an occupational safety issue. That's where it gets covered in all these other countries. And what they've simply done is added psychosocial hazards to the definition. Here's the other thing that I found, though. I couldn't find a real definition, though. I found a list of what psychosocial, for example, Australia is by far the leader in this topic. And they have 37 examples of what a psychosocial hazard is, not really a definition. There's an international standard, ISO 45003, that talks about psychological health and safety in the workplace. It doesn't define what a psychosocial hazard is. It gives you 88 examples. It defines psychosocial risk, but it doesn't define the hazard. So that became somebody had to define it. So I did. So in my research, my definition of a psychosocial hazard is a psychosocial factor that's perceived or experienced by the person exposed as a threat that changes their behavior. It's all of that stuff. Psychosocial factors at work. It's not just whatever people are feeling. Is it a psychosocial factor? Does it have to do with your job or with the environment that you're in? There's a full body of work that was done on psychosocial hazards by the International Labor Organization back in the 80s. That's a known thing. Is that psychosocial factor perceived or experienced by me? Our perceptions and experiences that's just how our brain works.
Well, and they're valid.
I take in data, perception, and then my brain interprets that to be something and tells me a story about what that means. The thing itself may not be anything to somebody else. It just means something to me. If what it means to me is it's threatening, then my amygdala fires up and it goes like, so your brain is processing about 11 million bits of information per second.
Right.
It pays a lot of attention, about 40 or 50 of them, because it's looking for the threat. Because if there's a threat, we're not going to have a kind civil discussion if you have a gun in my face, or if I think I'm going to get hit by a car. My amygdala fires up right now and protects me because of the threat.
Right.
So if the threat is such that my behavior changes, it changed, it was threatening, I perceived it to be, that way based on this environment, that is a psychosocial hazard to me. And my list and your list will likely be very different.
Quick question here. I talk about triggers a lot. And, growing up as a child, all of us, we experience some type of form of adverse childhood experiences, trauma.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And in like my own kind of self, awareness and my own journey of self-discovery, I realize that right now today, something could happen that triggers me to trauma that I experienced as a child.
Yes.
And so our brain isn't saying, hey, hey, Miss Kamei, this happened to you 20 years ago, right? I'm
Right,
not going to give away my age.
right,
20
right.
years ago.
Yeah, right.
And you're being triggered right now by this conversation or this experience, and it's taking you back 20 years ago. My mind, my body, my conscience, the physical experience is reacting and responding like
Yes,
what happened 20 years ago.
yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
so those things are playing a role with targets in the workplace, or
Ye-
people who are in the
Yeah.
workplace experiencing these
Yes.
psychosocial experiences,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
not that we're making excuses for people. We're not making excuses,
What,
but what you had just said, regarding, like your, catalog of experiences versus mine are different,
they
but
are.
nonetheless, they're still relevant. So elaborate on that. Tell me what you think
So
about that.
what I really wanted, the elaboration goes to, so we've picked up in the last probably 4 or 5 years specifically on the work of Dr. Amy Edmondson and others, but she's given a lot of credit, and I'd love to meet her someday. I think she did great work around psychological safety. And it's a team oriented kind of approach that says, in this team we can challenge the status quo, we can come up with new ideas, and I'm not going to be mistreated or looked at sideways because I'm a little bit different. And in that environment, we're able to be more innovative. The other concept of psychological safety is that you once you create that, people should be able to bring their whole self into that environment, be their best and all that.
Right.
But but to that is, it's not going to stay psychologically safe if there are unaddressed hazards in the environment that you didn't even know were there. And when
Yeah.
I bring my whole self, I bring some of them with me. You're not
Mhm.
going to know that. You're not going to know unless I tell you my whole life story and we don't have time for it. You aren't going to know that, I had a traumatic event when I was 6. You aren't going to know that I was molested, or that I saw my mom get beat up, or that I had a childhood illness, or that you name it,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw a crime. I mean, there's all these things going on in the world and you won't know that. But we are naive if we believe that every person we bring in is a blank slate,
Mhm.
and when they bring their whole self, they're not going to bring trauma with them. We all have it. And the
Yeah.
issue is not to try to know it all. The issue is to respond to it when it comes up. That's all. Is to assume that Miss Kamei, when she comes into this group, something happened in her life that might cause her to feel uncomfortable when we do whatever. And the
Yeah.
question is, when she says, I'm not really feeling really comfortable with that, we deal with it then, not, well, you're in this group now and we don't care how you feel and we got stuff to
Right.
do and rah, 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 rah. That's when it goes sideways.
Well, Miss Kamea is going to let you have it. Like, she's going to tell you.
But that's what we need. We need people that can be able to say, that just doesn't work for me. And again,
Right.
I'm
Right.
not angry. You wouldn't know this unless I told you. Where I'm going to have an issue is I bring it up and you ignore it, or
Yes.
you say that it's not real. And that's why the title of my book, I'm trying to convince people that psychosocial hazards are a thing. I'm not even
Yes.
trying to tell you what to do with it, what to
Right.
do
Right.
about it, because you're not going to deal with something if you don't even believe it's there. There are
Correct.
those who don't believe that feelings belong at work, but 80% of our decision making is based on our feelings. It's not based on your spreadsheet or your statistical analysis.
Right.
I'll say this now. I'll close this diatribe. Dr. Myron Golden suggests that people do things for one reason and one reason only, because they feel like it. That's
Mm-hmm.
what drives because we felt that way. At
Right.
that point,
In the moment.
in the moment, I got enough data, I got enough whatever to convince me to feel like it. And instead of being concerned about how people feel, we just give you more numbers. And
Yeah.
I'm not feeling that. And more numbers, now I feel even worse.
Right. Right. Because I'm not just a number here.
I'm not just a number.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Going back to the Safety and Health Management System manual that was prepared by OSHA, Chapter 10, it actually has definitions. Um, and then also it kind of outlines the responsibilities. So it outlines assault, It also outlines intimidating behavior, threats, or other conduct that in any way create a hostile environment,
Right. Right.
impair agency operations, or frighten, alarm, or inhibit others. These are OSHA's guidelines, right?
Yes,
These are
and
their definitions.
that also sounds like the definition of, so a person in power who does something that feels awful to me and does it for a period of time, that's bullying. It's the same thing. What they're talking about, and
Yes,
the folks who created the workplace violence standards likely did not have a background in bullying. Probably did not. They didn't have the research. They didn't. But
right.
that's what you're saying. I can also tell you that if you were to look in the international standard ISO 45003, you'll find that violence is a psychosocial hazard.
Hmm.
Bullying is a psychosocial hazard.
Exactly.
Harassment is a that's what they are. So
That's what
from a
they're
safety
talking about.
perspective, they're safety things. And if we were to address them as safety issues, as OSHA expects that we will, then we're going to have a safer environment, both psychologically and physically.
Yes, yes. They also mention verbal intimidation may include making false statements that are malicious, disparaging, derogatory, disrespectful,
Yes.
abusive, or rude.
Yes.
In my research, and because I knew OSHA, I knew about OSHA, and I knew, OSHA is the agency, that like regulates, safety standards in the workplace, but had no idea until after I chatted with you, these definitions.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like the holy grail to, what my consulting business is based on when I consult with targets, the holy grail to what the coalition is doing and their lobbying efforts, trying to pass law to make bullying in our workplace illegal. Like, here are the definitions. These are the definitions. right,
Exactly.
right here.
I'm of the opinion that some people are triggered by things about civil rights, and like they're a little triggered by that. I get it. I understand. Who does not want to be safe at work?
Right,
Tell me one group. I can't tell me who doesn't want to be safe. Everybody wants to be
right,
safe at work.
right.
And all I'm suggesting is that we expand our definition about what safe means. It's not just the physical stuff, because a lot of the physical stuff, it started. The reason I wrecked that vehicle is because I was being bullied by my boss. The
Right.
reason I slipped and fell is I was thinking about that argument I just had. I mean, a lot of these things are connected. And why do we wait until the physical injury happens? Because the physical injuries often cost a lot more. A
Yes.
lot more.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I just want to close out, this whole topic on OSHA, um, regarding their definition of their employer's responsibilities to the act, right? The responsibility is that employees will treat all other employees as well as customers with dignity and respect. Management will provide a working environment as safe as possible by having preventative measures in place and by dealing immediately, there's that word, immediately, with threatening or potentially violent situations.
Yes.
No employee will engage in threats, violent outbursts, intimidation, bullying, harassment, or other abusive, disruptive behaviors. This is OSHA's definition
Yes.
of responsibilities in the workplace, not just to employees, but the employer as well, and employee to employee.
Right.
So I just want our audience to know, if you feel that you are in an unsafe workplace and you feel that your reporting of that is not being taken seriously, if you feel that you want to file a complaint with OSHA because your workplace is not safety based on the information that you've heard today from Mr. Daniels, you can file a workplace safety and health or whistleblower complaint with OSHA. You go to their website, www.osha.gov/worker/file a complaint. They have an online process portal that's actually very user friendly. And you can file a complaint that OSHA essentially will investigate. I want to move down to, we're talking all this workplace bullying and all of this information. You're just a tower of on the topic. And you are booked really like almost all year with speaking engagements.
Right.
And I want to just highlight a few of them. Your first confirmed speaking engagement that you have is actually next week. It's coming up next week, the 15th through the 19th at the EMS Leader Summit. So this is a free virtual conference, free.
Yes.
I want to emphasize word free.
Yes. Yes.
It's focused on leadership related topics. Learning will be excellent for anyone in healthcare, emergency services, law enforcement, military, or business leadership roles. So talk to our audience about this this summit and how they can register to attend.
So my friends Robbie and Lisa, who started the EMS Leadership Academy, I don't remember when they started the academy. They started the summit now 6 years ago, and they reached out. I didn't even know these folks. I'm not sure how we even got connected, but they reached out and said, "Hey, we're going to be doing this conference. It's going to be virtual." So yeah, well, no, nobody. It's going to be free and it's going to be virtual. Like that sounds cool. And we're just kind of looking for speakers, and and some people think we're kind of weird by doing this. And I go like, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
You don't have to travel, and you can do it for free. Now, there is a cost if you want to. If you want to retain what you see, you get, that's for a nominal cost. You can get access to these classes, then they're yours for good, and it's on $100, so it's cheap. It's not like the thousands of dollars you have to pay to go to some of these conferences with the airfare and the hotel and all this stuff. So I joined up with them 6 years ago, and they keep asking me back.
Yeah, well, I see why. I see why.
The next year we're in the middle of a pandemic, and now folks thought this was a really cool idea. And last I heard, they've certainly got more data. Last I heard, there are people attending from 40 or 50 countries. And thousands of people are showing up. And the emergency medical services is, to me, the pre-hospital part of the healthcare system, because some people, the only way they're going to get healthcare is they're going to call 911. They're going to look for a fire truck or an ambulance to show up because they don't have anything else. But many of these systems are severely underfunded. There are some communities in this country that, you're going to wait half an hour for an ambulance or a fire truck to even show up. We don't have an equal healthcare system. We don't have an equal, emergency medical care system. We don't have an equal medical or mental health care system either. So it's not equal for everybody. So different. Some people, particularly in rural areas or in urban areas where there's a lot of poverty, these systems aren't equal. This gives people the opportunity to get access to really good information and not have to pay a ton for it.
What are you going to be speaking on?
Well, my topic is going to be, it's hard to help when the helping hurts.
Okay.
Don't
give it away. Don't give it away. Don't tell us what it's about.
It's really hard to take care of other people when you're in pain yourself.
Yeah.
And some of that's on the employers.
Okay. Got it. And people can search online EMS Leadership Summit, and that should come up for them. And they can register for free. Great. May 13th, the Georgia chapter of the American Society of Safety Professionals Professional Development Conference. You're going to be speaking there.
Yes.
Again, going back to May 28th is your book launch for Psychosocial Hazards Are Real. That's going to be happening up in Canada. So how is there a cost for that book signing? People got to pay to come see you and get a book?
No. That I as a matter of fact, I will be. That date is significant because I'll be meeting with a group in Canada. Based on, it's a group of psychological health and safety experts from predominantly across Canada, and there's a few of us from the U.S. and from other countries who join them, because Canada's been they've been doing this they've had a standard since 2013. And this group is assembled by one of the minds behind that standard. And so it's just an opportunity to be able to be amongst other like-minded people. And I thought while I'm in town, I found this bookstore is actually a Black-owned bookstore in Toronto.
Wow.
And I wanted to go to that because part of the story of my book. I look how I look, and I'm not running away from that. And part of the reason that some psychosocial hazards are hazards for me is because I'm Black. Just like some are psychosocial hazards for you because you're a woman, or because we all have so I'm not running away from that, but I thought it would be interesting to have that conversation there. So it's, it starts at 6:30. It goes for about an hour and a half. If you want to fly there, great, but it's really more for people who are in the Toronto area, just want to stop by. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book. I'll have some available. I don't know that I'll have enough for everybody, but by that time, they will be available for people to get their own copy.
Got it. Wonderful. I'm going to move into June for you really quickly. It looks like you've got you're not even going to be home in the month of June.
Not much.
You're going to be in Perth, Australia at the Psychological Safety Seniors Leader Forum, Melbourne on June 10th for the Psychological Safety Senior Leaders Forum there. And then in New Zealand on June 12th, again, for the Psychological Safety Seniors Leaders Forum, And then June 19th through the 20th, you're going to be down in Sydney for the Psychological Health and Safety Conference. You're going to be speaking there and also doing a book signing. You got to make sure you have enough books.
I have to give a shout out to Jason Van Schie and the folks at Flourish DX. They're actually located in Australia. They are the sponsors of my podcast. The Psych, Health, and Safety USA podcast is sponsored by a company in Australia, because Australia is, so Canada and Australia are doing the thing when it comes to psychological health and safety. And Australia has taken the legislative route. They have laws in place. They believe that psychological and physical safety are the very same thing. You have the same responsibility. And if we fine you for a physical thing, we're going to fine you for a psychological thing. And they've done it. And so the opportunity to be, this is my, I got invited back from going last year. This Senior Leaders Forum is just a really unique opportunity. Myself and some other speakers are going to be traveling to these places in advance of the conference, but these will be specifically leaders and executives of companies in Australia. They have a law, they have to do this. And so they'll be looking for our ideas and thoughts about how they follow the law that says they have to. I'm hoping and praying someday that we get these kinds of forums here, whether we get a law or not. I think we can learn from both Canada and Australia.
Of course.
We don't have to have a law to do what's right.
Correct.
And so why not do this before we get a law or in lieu of a law? But anyway, I just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to be invited to go with them. And again, so it's myself and Jason and Marianne Dayton. She's from Canada. And Peter Kelly is from the UK. So matter of fact, this is kind of the superstar team. And I got invited to go along with them.
Well, because you're a superstar yourself, Mr. Daniels. I'm giving you the pom-poms. Yay!
I'm doing my best to hang out with these folks because, again, they've been doing this longer than I. And again, I'm a safety guy. They're, psychologists, and, really they have a depth of understanding. And again, they're in the UK and Canada and Australia. They're where this is actually going on. I'm here in the US where we're working on it. Yeah. And I consider myself a safety kind of activist in this area. But it's a privilege to be able to hang out with them and learn from them.
Yeah. That is an intern project that the National Workplace Bullying Coalition has implemented. We are picking up college students and offering them an internship with the coalition to actually research the laws in Australia, also Puerto Rico as well.
Yes.
And what their law is and how they were successful in lobbying essentially this legislation, which, now has been adopted, which these countries are following, and they have been for quite some time.
Yes. You've probably, and if you haven't, I'd encourage them to pick up Ellen Cobb's book that talks about managing psychological health and safety or managing psychosocial hazards. And she's an attorney that has done the research about, that's why I know there are 40 countries, because I have her book.
Got it.
It's from the view of an attorney of all these laws, and includes the UK and Canada and Australia and Mexico and all these places who have looked at this issue of psychosocial hazards, of psychological health and safety, and they've put laws in place that, and again, this is also how many of them, this is how they address bullying. They
Right.
consider it a safety issue.
Yeah.
It's not, frankly, it's a moral issue to me. It isn't to everybody. It's a safety thing for everybody, though.
Yeah. In the workplace. Absolutely, in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. So in closing, this has been a phenomenal interview with you, Mr. Daniels. I can't thank you enough for this invaluable, experience and information that you've shared with me on my platform here on the Miss Camay Show. I hope that this interview helps people and helps targets. Something that I want everybody to know is that you're not in this alone. Yeah. There are other targets who have survived workplace bullying. There are other communities out there. My hashtag stand up, speak out is, something that I live and stand by. We cannot be silent. When we are in these workplaces and these cultures and these environments are hostile and volatile and these behaviors are allowed. Number one, no, that's not where you want to be. And I think that's something that's really challenging for a lot of targets is, they've been in this position for however many years and they have seniority and they've been dealing with this for so long. And oftentimes, that is really kind of like the big question of the day with clients I consult with is, do you really want to stay in this environment? Do you want to continue fighting this battle that you've already lost?
Right.
Because you've been in this job for 20 years. You have 20 years of experience, 20 years of a skill set, 20 years of knowledge. Don't you think there is some employer out there that will be ecstatic to have you on their team? These days, especially with our younger generation, they're kind of following a different path than our generation or our parents' generation. You can't buy that experience. You can't buy 20 years of legal experience. You can't buy 20 years of business experience. You can't pay somebody enough for that type of experience. And so,
if I can share just a
yes,
point.
please.
We have this belief that long tenured people are the rule and not the exception. They are the exception. The average tenure, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in every industry since 1963 is about 5 years. So you are unique if you've been someplace for more than 5 years. You are special because you've been there and you have that experience. And it's really hard to find. And you need to think about, is my safety, how valuable is my safety? How valuable is it? And some people need to leave. Don't let them treat you like a piece of trash that they can throw out when you know more about this thing than they do. They don't deserve you. They don't deserve to have you there. You should be in some place who's going to treat you with the dignity and respect that you deserve.
Yes. I applaud that. Great message. So talk to us, Dr. Daniels. I was going to ask you, if there's one thing that you could say to, targets that are being bullied in the workplace. I think you really just kind of said it. You kind of took the words right out of my mouth. But, in addition to that, somebody who's being bullied in the workplace, they're just kind of maybe coming to the understanding that this is what's happening, that they're not just dealing with, a boss that doesn't know what they do, or dealing with a boss who's, doesn't have as much experience as they have. What would you say to those targets?
I'd say the first thing you should do is look in the mirror. The first thing you should do and ask yourself, why do I feel the way that I feel about this? Because sometimes they're not bullying you. Sometimes you are being triggered by something that happened to you someplace else. But because you haven't had therapy, because you haven't addressed it, you're carrying that baggage every place you go. You never really got over it. And you need to get control of that for yourself so you know what your triggers are. So then next time, don't go to a place like that. You're going to be triggered by that anyway. So know what's good with you. Now, once you meet yourself, I really enjoyed meeting myself because I love me some me, and I know what worked for me. And I know some places just don't work for me. So when you get your next opportunity, do your research on them before you go there. There's plenty of information out there on Glassdoor. There's a website called Culturama that has about 1,500 of the largest companies in this country that'll tell you what's going on. You can do search them as much as they're searching you, because some of the stuff is known. You know that they've got bullies running up. So frankly, if they want to bully each other, that's their issue. You don't go there because you know that doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And then if you find yourself in a scenario where you don't feel you're being treated in a safe manner, speak up for yourself. People can't read your mind.
Yes.
They don't know that feels threatening to you. They don't know that felt like a microaggression, or it felt racist or sexist. They don't know that. And if your speaking up is not accepted, then I need to start looking for a different kind of environment. It may just be a different person. All of those people are not bad people. It is that environment that you don't need to be in.
Yes. Oh,
it's the environment. It is the environment, because when that person was hired, they said they were a good person, just like they hired you and you were good. Nobody puts up a sign and says, I'm looking for horrible, evil people to come work here. So how did they change? It was the environment that brought out something in them that probably is unhealthy to you. So know yourself, know what works for you, speak up for yourself. And if it's not working, find another environment that is going to be healthier for you.
Such great advice, great feedback. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniels. I want you to tell people and share with people how they can connect with you. I will tell you Mr. Daniels' website, id2-solutions.com. You can see it right there on your screen. He's got a contact me tab, talking about empowering your team with expert safety training. I mean, I love how your website has all these moving parts to it. So tell our audience how they can connect with you. And do you do, any business consulting with individuals or organizations, regarding psychosocial safety policies or, issues in their organizations?
Yes. So I do anything that is safety related, but I tend to focus on the polar ends of the conversation. I tend to focus on disaster and emergency preparedness because I have a lot of background and experience in that. So if your organization, your emergency plan is non-existent or you haven't practiced it, I can do all of that stuff because been there, done that. I also go all the way to the other end, is helping you identify the psychosocial hazards. First of all, you probably didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
Second of all, so you didn't identify them, or they're there and you don't know what to do about them. And so this conversation in the United States is still relatively new, and it depends on your level of maturity. So I can do training and education on what they are, and then I can do an assessment. So now that you know what they are, where do they exist in your organization? I have an instrument I use called a psychosocial hazard inventory to find out where they are. And then here comes the difficult part. The mitigation measures, many of the mitigation measures you already have in place right now. You don't realize it, but you've got ways to deal with that problem right now. It doesn't require a bunch of new stuff. It requires you recognizing that a job description is not just an HR thing. It is also helpful to mitigate a psychosocial hazard. Recognizing that training can mitigate a psychosocial hazard. I'm not saying you need a bunch of new stuff. I'm saying that you don't recognize this hazard exists and you've got the solution already, but it's like you've got a hammer, you don't know where the nail is. So that's what I try to do, is help people just identify. And again, there is no standard approach to this.
Yeah.
There is no cookie cutter approach that works for everybody because the people are different.
Right.
I'll always approach it from a safety lens though. Many times the conversation about psychosocial hazards is because your physical safety hazard program isn't very good either. I mean, it just is.
They kind of go hand in hand, right?
They're connected. So that I try to connect all that stuff. And again, I'm also not, I don't need to be around forever. My goal is to help empower you so you can do this.
Yeah.
And, and so because I can't be there all the time. I mean, I don't, I like you, but not that much. I want to help you get this started so then you can figure it out and I can go off and help somebody else.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. So how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? Your social media platforms? I've got your website pulled up.
Yeah, my website's a good place. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well. I do have a presence on Instagram and a presence on Facebook, but LinkedIn is probably in the middle, the one I'm most active on.
Okay.
So if folks want to find me, David Daniels is on LinkedIn, and I'm the only one that has the I in the David Daniels part. So
wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Daniels. I just so appreciate you spending your time with me today, making time for me today, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and really focusing on your passion, your desire to have safe workplaces in our country. We love all the work that you're doing. Please continue to do it. There's so many people out here, who need to hear from you. So many employers, so many employers and organizations. So please keep talking.
I will.
Keep
Absolutely.
talking. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the Miss Camay Show. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at the Miss Camay Show. You can find all of my great interviews with all of my fabulous, fantastic guests there on YouTube. And you can also watch season 1 and season 2 interviews of your favorite guests. So be sure to visit me on YouTube at Miss Camay, the Miss Camay Show, and subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.